Fire and fear. Unwelcome visitors this summer to one of Turkey's most scenic regions. High winds and dry conditions are driving wildfires across western Turkey's Aegean region, forcing people to flee their homes.
There are lots of houses. There's a summer camp. The forest goes all the way there. I thought it will not cross the road, but it did. The wind is extremely strong.
Firefighters are trying to control the blazes from the air and land, but the weather is making it harder.
Because of the heavy wind and dry weather, the fire quickly moved towards the Menderes district due to the direction of the wind, and it is not under control. Our teams are working on the ground. The wind gusts are between 70 to 100 kilometers per hour, so our air units are not operating.
Smoke has reached the nearby city of Izmir and forced the closure of its international airport on Sunday for several hours. Delayed flights disrupted holidaymakers' plans. But residents of the region face an even greater disruption and uncertainty as the flames spread. Wilson Dysart, Al Jazeera.
Don't miss out, get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news and expert insights. Like, share, stay ahead.
12 days of war, pitting the U.S.-Israeli axis against Iran. President Trump is painting himself as a statesman.
It's in your DNA, in your blood, to cheer against Trump.
He and his administration are taking on any media that don't buy that line. The killing fields in Gaza, disguised as aid stations. The videos are horrific. And dismantling the headlines. Somebody's got to do it, and nobody's better at it than us, all right. From holding talks with Iran about its nuclear program to bombing its nuclear facilities, to then executing a trademark Trumpian 180-degree turn and brokering a ceasefire. From publicly backing Israel to then scolding it on live television with a little profanity thrown in. The American president had another one of those weeks that had political leaders and news organizations struggling to figure out what to make of him. There is usually a theatrical component to what comes out of the White House these days, starting with a president obsessed with optics. Donald Trump's persistent pivoting has less to do with diplomacy than it does with the narrative, one that he hopes casts him as a peacemaker. Despite all the twists and turns, Israel's actions in Iran have been insufficiently questioned, just like in Gaza, while Western news outlets continue to paint Iran as an irrational existential threat to the Middle East. It is a misleading framing with elements of propaganda to it, which when one compares the nuclear programs in Iran and Israel, simply collapses. Welcome back to Morning Joe. Of all the sound bites Donald Trump has provided American journalists with over the years, this one may end up in a category of its own because of what Trump said and the way he said it.
We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing.
Trump was criticizing both Israel and Iran. It's obvious he really doesn't like it when people don't listen to him. That's what I picked up on, Trump's frustration. And of course there was the swear word itself.
They don't know what the they're doing. You understand that?
Trump's whole persona is based on deal making. The book that helped propel him into stardom was The Art of the Deal. On his reality shows, all about the theater of deal making. So now it's the theater of diplomacy. So it's important to him that he gets credit for what he does, that the media give him credit. That's what really matters to him.
This is a very weird situation we all find ourselves in, because on the one hand you have America funding the wars, supplying the bombs, and then the president wants to come out of all of this looking like some sort of hero.
Make no mistake, however, this is a war Israel instigated through airstrikes coordinated with the U.S., which then bombed nuclear facilities just for good measure. Iran's military response was measured, targeting the U.S. Air Force Base in Qatar. After warning Washington the attack was coming, resulting in no American casualties. Part of Benjamin Netanyahu's strategy in attacking Iran was diversionary, to draw attention away from Israel's genocidal assault on Gaza, the horrific scenes of starving Palestinians continually getting mowed down, killed, while lining up for food aid. A second element in Israel's thinking is to cripple Iran economically, as well as militarily, by killing more than a dozen of its top military figures. The goal? To mitigate Iran's influence in the Middle East through regime change. What made President Trump's criticism of Israel's ceasefire violation so extraordinary, though, despite the performative aspect of what he said, was that Trump was still calling out an ally.
I'm not happy with Israel. You don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either.
Certainly, part of it is political theater. And he's the master of theatrics, to create ambiguity about what he wants to do, so that he can have various options.
Hi, Eric.
As
Good morning.
things change, he can go back and say, I told you so. So when there is a chance for the overthrow of the Islamic Republic, he talks about regime change. Or if the
Why?
situation is different,
Why are you
he can
laughing?
say, I wanted to make Iran
Tell
great
me.
again. It is a combination of political theatrics and strategic
Why
ambiguity,
not go?
which
Why
is
you're
a very
laughing?
effective way of pursuing policy.
So Trump himself has moved across the
Tell me why you're laughing. Tell me.
Let's look at the
Why you're
political
laughing,
implications here.
Eric?
What consequences could GOP senators face for not backing the
If your
big,
wife
beautiful
is
bill?
watching,
And let's start with
maybe
the specifics,
she will
because
angry to you.
consequences to
You
Tom
sending
Tillis are
flowers
kind of now
to
null and void. He said, I'm not running. I'm going to go get a consulting job or retire. You know, he'll get
You're
a consulting
happy to
job or
see me?
retire regardless of whether he votes for this. I'm looking at Rand Paul. And so David, the question becomes, would Donald Trump actually primary or use his mechanisms
But your
to
wife is not
primary
happy
Rand
to
Paul?
see me. You're watching
They
me.
certainly have a collegial
Tell me your wife
relationship.
is
They
there.
go back and forth, and differences. Would he primary him? Yes, because when you look at this, and I mentioned dynamic scoring and Rand's arguments, and he does what his father did, and I knew his father for many years, and he would use a silo argument only based on something that fit the argument. Rand's
get
doing the
with
same
the
thing, and it's a
filter.
bit disingenuous. At the same time, he's been known to be the flop, or the fold, I think that's the word, that comes around on these bills when he looks at the bigger picture.
Show me.
Mitch McConnell is about to be out.
Show me the
Rand
evidence,
Paul,
Eric.
if he wants to be the senior senator in Kentucky, does not need upheaval.
Show
when
me
even
your
some of the more
this one,
moderate, independent
your
Mitch
birth
voters, the ones
certificate
that supported Andy
that
Bashir
states
and the
there you are
Bashir family
single.
over the decades, were not that thrilled about him. So his primary and his chances could become a problem for him, and a vote
Show
for
me
Trump
now.
would solidify the growing base
I know,
in,
that's what
in
it is.
Kentucky for him.
Show me the
Madison, I'm glad
evidence, the
David
proof
brought up
that
Ron
it states
Paul,
there
because
that
if you
you
look at
are
Ron
single.
Paul's history, He was not a
Hey,
Republican for every single one of his
I'm
years.
asking
He
you.
definitely vacillated into libertarianism and the like. Could you ever see Rand Paul becoming an independent and maybe caucusing with the Republicans?
Oh, I mean, that's interesting. I mean, he's done well as a Republican, even as the party has changed with President Trump. So, if necessary, I'm sure he could, because he's definitely someone who will stick to his beliefs. I know a big issue for him is the debt issue, which many Republicans obviously also take issue with. Would he need to switch to independent? I don't necessarily see that happening, but if that was the path forward,
That
I'm sure he would
picture,
take it. I think he's someone who, at the last minute, could
the
change his mind, but he's really
state,
drilled down on this deficit issue, which I think is a good point, because even, you know, what Chad was just saying is the case. Events happen, and we just
I
look at the last
mean
2
your
weeks,
birth
there are things that come
certificate
up.
that
So,
stated
you know, the
there
Senate bill
you are
increases the
single.
deficit by $3.3 trillion, according to the CBO. And then you have senators like Mike Rounds of South Dakota saying, well, $4 trillion will be added to the economy. But I think there's a lot of
Send me.
senators, Paul included, that would say it's still not good enough because we're taking on too much debt.
Molly,
Send me
including your
now.
question for Chad, you tried to get names, and one of those names was Lisa Murkowski.
Yeah.
And I wonder, how much pressure does Donald Trump have over Lisa Murkowski, somebody
I know.
who he has been attacking for years, and she somehow manages, based upon her name in that state,
No,
to
it's my
always
off
come
again
out
today.
ahead of the game, at least when it comes to winning elections. So how much pressure does he ultimately have on her?
Well, it's interesting because another senator that we perhaps should be watching as the votorama gets
I
underway
don't
is Senator
have.
Susan Collins, kind of in the
Right.
same
How
vein
many
from up
times
in
I
Maine. And
told
she's talked
you?
about how she voted to move things forward procedurally, but that she wants to see changes, that there are some
Are
very
you
good
okay?
changes that have
I
been made in the
don't
latest
have.
version, but I want to see further changes, and I'll be filing a number of amendments. So there are a number of Republicans, really, you know, that have been independent and have been willing to cross the aisle and cross party lines that are going to be interesting to watch as this gets underway before things head back over to the House.
With both of those names you mentioned, Collins and Murkowski, you have the rural hospital issue with Medicaid cuts, and that's a concern. So the question becomes when. I've been working a lot. We had a little bombing thing on the last week, and I had to come in. I need next weekend off. I need July 4th off. So my question for you is, when are we going to get this thing
If
down?
they're able to complete by tomorrow, I think some of the projections are around 11 a.m., then it could go to the
You
House
like my
on
friends?
Tuesday late or Wednesday early. So it is possible to get the vote ahead
She
of
have a
time.
boyfriend.
As far as rounding up the votes, the work being done in the House has been successful
Maybe
so far to bring
someone
people around.
hacked
I've been
me.
to some of the GOP conferences to cover
I
them,
don't
the
know.
congressmen get together. And I think they're a little bit more aligned in the House than people think. Look, the
That's
Salt
why.
Caucus is arguing for the Salt Caucus. They know they've lost that argument. As for the senators, Murkowski and Collins get heavy union support. Mitch McConnell's
know
about
how.
to be out. Ranked
I don't
choice
know
voting is on
why.
the table. Now again, in
They
Alaska,
were
which
all
takes
gone
Murkowski out,
in
Murkowski
a
out,
day.
so they have to consider their political future without Sugar Daddy Mitch
Hi,
being the leader in the Senate.
Maureen.
Gotta go to tease, but quickly. Do you think we get it by the 4th? Yes or no?
I think
Thank
we
you
do.
for
I think the Senate passes it Monday.
coming.
The House will be hard-pressed to not go with Trump.
Molly, are you watching the Pops or are you
Kang
watching the
maingay.
bill
Bakit
on
wala
the
kang
July
work
4th
ngayon? Wala
proposal?
kang
The president was
part-time?
asked about this by Maria Bartiromo, and he said, will it happen? He said, I don't know. He said, whatever it is, as long as we have it, it's very important. So I don't know
No.
if it really matters if it gets the 4th or if it's next week or Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday.
They need it soon because business owners need some certitude as to what they do, as Madison.
Eric is
Coming up
calling
on
you,
this jam-packed
Maureen.
weekend show, more Iranians are arrested this week as the nation is on high alert over possible sleeper cells in the U.S. But first, Democrats are drooling over their socialist mayoral candidate, but New York City singles, they ain't feeling the vibes.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews
Ask
and most
him.
compelling analysis. You will not get it
Maybe
anywhere else.
you and Eric will be compatible. Eric is looking for a special someone. Eric! Eric? Are you okay? Maybe you're a playboy. That's it. You're a playboy.
Mr. President, you were just coming off one of the most consequential weeks anybody has ever seen, from striking Iran to going to NATO, to announcing 2 deals and having the Supreme Court victory.
Wala ka na nga sa
Have you
buhay
been
mo.
able to digest what has occurred in the last 7 days?
Not really. It was a pretty wild period of time, and I really think in 6 months we've taken the country and turned it around. It's I was told by the King of Saudi Arabia, by the leader of Qatar, and the leader of UAE when we went over there. We brought back $5.1 trillion investment into the United States. They said, you know, you're presiding now over the hottest country in the world, and a year ago we thought your country was dead. It could never
Ay,
come
wala
back.
pang nagchat-chat,
It
bebe.
was so incompetently run by a very bad president, and
Pataubin ko na tong
I
si
said, you're
Eric.
right, this country is hot. And it's,
Hindi
that
pa
was a
siya
couple of months
tuminom.
ago. You know, now we're talking about what we've done recently. So the country is really going, and the numbers are great. I watch you in the mornings, and you're giving those numbers, and they're really good. No inflation. Yeah, we have a bad Fed
Anong
chairman, but other than that, we
What?
have, you know,
What happened to you,
doesn't
Eric?
matter. The
Eric.
numbers are so good, it doesn't matter that he keeps the rates artificially high. But it's been an amazing period of time.
When you went to the Middle East and you strengthened those relationships,
Hindi ko yung BF. I don't have boyfriend, Maureen.
did you have an idea
Manahimik ka nga
that you have to
dyan.
do something with regard to Iran? Because you teased it a little. You said, look, they've got to come to the table and talk. Something's going to happen.
Well, it was getting a little bit hot, and we knew they had a lot of sites, probably 3 plus the 1. But they had 3 main sites.
Huwag mo sirain ang araw ko.
Negotiation, and we just about had it done.
Oo,
They
huwag
said,
mo
"We want
sirain ng mga nanonood. Dahil kayo wala na akong ano.
doesn't mean like air conditioning, and it doesn't
Nang
mean
manonood
to
sa akin.
jack up your
Baliw ka
car.
ba?
Enrichment is a bad word." And I said, "You got so much oil. What do you need that for?" And they said, "Well, we need it, and I wouldn't let that happen. I think people wouldn't have understood it if I allowed that to happen." So we had a 60-day talk, and that delayed them a lot. And then we said, "Let's go at it." And it just worked out. And we wanted to work out also for Iran. They were beaten up, and so was Israel. In all fairness, they were both very tight. We fought the 12-day war. That was an intensive war. But
Nasaan na ba si
I
Don?
wanted to do, and I've said it on your show. If you look back 30
Eric,
years
are you
ago, in
friend with
25 years,
Don?
We've been doing your show a long time, and nobody like you. But you look back at the
Mamaya.
interviews, I would say Iran cannot have.
Later.
And they've wanted this for years, and they were weeks away from getting it. And those pilots went
Later,
those
Maureen.
beautiful planes and the most sophisticated bombs anywhere. Though I think of it, they can go 30 stories.
Daanan mo
deep
ako
into
dito?
granite. Who would think that's even possible?
Or may sasakyan ka?
And they did obliterate it, it turned out. Though we had to suffer the fake news, with the fake news in CNN and the New York Times was saying, well, maybe it wasn't
Yeah.
as Trump said, maybe it wasn't totally obliterated, but it was destroyed, but not a, you know, just
Yeah,
horrible.
he
Now, I
is.
can see
I'm
it
listening to
happening, and
him
they tried to
every
build that into a
day.
story,
Okay.
and then it turned out, no, it was
Why?
obliterated
Is there
like nobody's
something
ever
wrong?
seen before. And that meant the
For listening to him.
nuclear ambitions, at least for a period of time. And you know, a lot of people have said, "Well, do you think they're
Yeah,
going to start
okay.
again?" I said, the last thing they want to do right now is think about nuclear. They have to put themselves back into condition and shape.
You tweeted, the Democrats leaked an intelligence.
They should be prosecuted.
Who specifically? Do we
The
know
people
who did
that
it? Will
leaked
you be able to find
They
out?
could find out. If they wanted, they could find out easily.
I will go
You know,
there. I
tell
want
the
to meet
reporter,
him.
National Security. Who gave it? Have to do that. And I suspect we'll be doing things like that.
Well, those
Ay,
pilots
nako,
were so
Lord.
courageous, and you know you want to honor them. Are you going to do something for them? Or are you
Yes, they're going to come to the White House, but
That's my
what
biggest
you said is
dream,
right.
though.
These people flew 36
You know.
hours in a small space, a big
Ay,
plane, but a
maganda pala
small
ako
space that was
pagkulot
mostly
ang buhok
occupied
ko,
by bombs.
girl.
And they flew so brilliantly, and they hit a target the size of this circle. A little target, they
Ay,
say,
nako.
half the size of a refrigerator door from 50,000 feet up in the air.
Oh,
Going at a rapid
baby.
speed because they're going very fast when they're over a pretty rough territory.
Oh, no.
Going at a rapid speed because they're going very fast when they're over a pretty rough territory.
Nasaan si Don, Eric? Are you not friend with
They
Don
knocked down 2 other
and
sites aside from that.
Do
the
you
other
think
one?
that the Iran regime hid some of the enriched uranium before the strikes?
No, you mean did they take it out of
Yeah.
the deep one? No.
Because you were pretty clear you can't have a weapon, you're going to have to come to the talk, something's going to happen.
I don't think they did. No, I think first of all, it's
Oh,
very hard to do.
baby,
It's very
think
dangerous to
gotta
do.
marry
It's
you,
very heavy,
yeah,
very, very heavy.
yeah.
It's a very hard thing to do. Plus, we didn't give much notice because they didn't know we were coming until just, then. And nobody thought we'd go after that site because everybody said that site is impenetrable. You can't, you're not going to be this way. They did. It's at the bottom of a mountain. And it's granite. Granite's the hardest stone, and it's granite. So no, they didn't. But I do believe they had people there because you had cars. They were saying cars, and those were masons. Those were people working with concrete. They were trying to seal up the entrance to where the bomb would most likely go in, and they did that. They were working on that, and the bomb went through it like it was butter, like it was absolute butter.
Because I saw reports that there were 400
What is
kilograms,
that,
800
Eric?
pounds that they moved. But I wonder if it's traceable. I mean, if they were
Are
to
you
have
sleeping?
they didn't move anything.
Oh, maybe it's coming early morning there in the USA, right?
What we did. And what we did was amazing. And they,
Sorry for
we went-
disturbing
there were
you.
energy
You can
commissions
sleep
that went
now.
there. No, it's just
You don't have work
thousands of
today.
tons of rock.
Hey, Eric, always be
in that room
careful
right now.
there
That
in the
room, the whole
US.
place was just destroyed. And the other two also. Now, Israel was able to do damage, but we did the final damage. And we have the greatest submarines in the world. We launched
Submarines, sabi
30
ni Donald
rockets from
Trump.
submarines.
Oh,
Every single one of them hit their
it
target.
hurts so
How will
much.
you know if he tries to start things up again? Because Iran just said that they are halting cooperation with the UN nuclear watchdog.
The
Are you
last thing
having
they're
your
gonna be doing right now
coffee,
for a period of time at least
coffee?
is nuclear.
Why it's
They've
not
had it.
milk?
They've been
Because
trying it
you're
for
gonna
25
sleep.
years. The last thing they're going to do is nuclear. We had to hit them, though. They were close to getting a nuclear bomb, absolutely.
Yeah.
Really?
Look, I've heard from people inside Iran that the
You're
regime in Iran has
5'11"?
executed more Iranian civilians in the past 48 hours than the number of Iranians who died in the 12-day war.
200
So,
pounds?
you've got a regime
Oh
that's
my
been building
God.
ballistic missiles, building or trying to build up a nuclear weapon. Why should we think that they're actually
Eddie,
going
wow.
to give up on us?
Well, they might not give up, but they
Eddie,
give up
wow.
on it while they're exhausted. They are exhausted. They took hits like nobody's ever taken. And frankly, Israel is tied. They wanted to.
Are
it
you
was the perfect
sleeping
time.
now?
We went in, we destroyed their nuclear capability, and we stopped. It was a beautiful thing. And they couldn't have gone on much further. And Israel was that was a very intense 12 days. Very, very intense.
Has any other country suggested to you recently, as a result of this, that they want to join the Abraham Accords?
Yes. So we have
Okay.
some really great countries in there right
That's
now, and I
great.
think we're going to start loading them up because Iran was the primary problem.
Eric,
I
thank
actually
you
thought
so
Iran would-
much.
I actually thought we had a period of time where I thought Iran would join the Abraham Accords along with everybody else, and frankly, they would have been better off than where they are right now.
And what about the Abraham Accords? Would
Tonight's was the most difficult of them all, by far, and perhaps
Now you
the
can
most
see me
lethal.
now.
But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with
Maybe I
precision,
end my life if you
speed,
cannot
and
see me.
skill. Most of them can be taken out in a matter of minutes. There's no military in the world that could have done what we did tonight, not even close. There's never been a military that could do what took place just a little while ago. Tomorrow, General Kane, Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth,
You can see
will
me
have
now,
a press
Eric.
conference at 8 a.m. at the Pentagon.
Tell me now.
And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God. I want to just say we love you, God, and we love our great military. Protect them. God bless the Middle East. God bless Israel, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
My eyes have seen the glory of the
Tell me if you can see me now or no, or I can just end my live.
This company should go bankrupt. It's all lies.
Huh? What do you mean?
I saw the table had $1 tip.
It's all a lie, sabi niya. Hi, Dawn. Now you're there. How are you? How are you, Dawn? You've been absent in my life. I'm watching the news. I'm off today, but I'm sad. Yeah, because I'm listening over the news, then what makes me sad. Unbelievable.
You love these people. That's for you, the United States military. That's for you, the Commander-in-Chief, our Commander-in-Chief, the President of the United States. You deserve to be honored and loved by the American people, and you are. 90% of the American people supported this. And now that it's been victorious, even more. And I would be terribly remiss if I didn't mention our great partners in this battle. The Israelis.
Yeah.
Their tremendous leader as well, Benjamin Netanyahu. Their tremendous IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, their intelligence agencies, Mossad and so forth. They're in this war, and they fought, and they fought, and they still fight. We're a great team, no matter how many people try to divide we Americans from the Israelis. We share a Judeo-Christian belief system. The Holy Land is our Holy Land. Our Holy Land. That's where Judaism and Christianity was born. Right there. Right there.
Gonna be there.
In an honor.
Yalla.
The Israelis. They have a prayer that they sing, sometimes read, in support of the Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF. And I want to share that with you right now as well. Go.
I'll be, I'll miss my heart, I'll say no.
I'll color my hair today. I will cut my hair and color my hair. Okay. I want to curl also. I don't have a beautiful smile. I want a hair like this. Hide it. What? Like this hair? Hello.
ייתן אדוני את אויבינו הקמים עלינו, ניגפים לפניהם. הקדוש ברוך הוא ישמור ויציל את חיילינו מכל צרה וצוקה, מכל נגע ומחלה. וישלח
Thank you for
ברכה
coming,
והצלחה בכל
everyone.
מעשה ידיהם. ידבר שונאינו תחתיהם ויעטרם בכתר ישועה ובעטרת ניצחון.
What do you mean?
וקוים בהם הכתוב, כי אדוני
No, I
אלוהיכם
will
ההולך
put
עמכם,
down my
להילחם
hair.
לכם עם אויביכם, להושיע אתכם, ונאמר אמן.
Okay, like this. Tell me. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Transfer your salary and avail
Hey, Don.
6.25% per annum. No minimum balance required.
It's really cold
Can't
in the
transfer
room.
salary? No problem.
Can you do the like
Hello,
this?
America. I'm Mark Levin, and this is Life, Liberty, and Levin Sunday. We have two great guests tonight, Senator Ted Cruz and Julian Epstein, an old friend of mine, was a big Democrat. Now he has some questions.
No,
and
I don't
we want to
need.
pursue those with him as well. But before we
I can
do, you're
warm
aware
up.
of these Supreme
Hello.
Court decisions. I've been railing against the judiciary and what the judiciary has been doing for months, indeed for years, indeed for decades, and particularly these lower court Democrat judges. And I've been railing against the violations of our Constitution, again for years, and I've written a few books on the subject, you might notice.
Oh, verses.
But I want to put this in some
What
context,
jumping?
and I want to do a deep dive. I took time to really digest these cases. Some of our legal friends have been kind of dismissing it. It's just a procedural issue. There's 14 other ways to bring cases.
I think
No, it's a
I'm
major
gonna
league case.
change
This case involving
my
these universal injunctions. In this case involving Montgomery County School District in Maryland is a major league case. But here's the problem. In better times, these cases would never have been
Happy to
necessary.
be here again. I
What
have
our
a
lower courts were
pimples.
doing built
Again.
up over time, but what they were doing during the Trump presidency, the first term and now this term, unprecedented. These judges who did that, they will remain in place for life. They are a cancer on the body politic. They are a cancer on our constitutional system. They're not going away.
Maybe I'm a half
They're there for
woman,
life.
half man. I have
Three Supreme Court
hair
justices
here,
who
you know.
thought what they were doing is perfectly fine.
Hello.
They were destroying separation of powers, which is
Oppa,
the
Oppa,
core principle in our Constitution.
Appailun.
And three of them thought it was fine. Kagan originally thought
Appailun.
it
Good
wasn't. She's a
morning.
complete
Good
hypocrite.
afternoon,
She's
I should
demonstrated
say.
it. And Justice Jackson is out of her mind. She doesn't belong on this court. She was basically, through her opinion, screaming epithets, screaming
What?
labels, slogans, and so forth and so
What
on. And she
do-
didn't
what
have
you
a leg
tell
to
me?
stand on, but it doesn't matter. And the
I
chief among
know.
them is Sotomayor, you'll notice. Always, from my perspective, always a definite vote against the Constitution. But these two cases are a problem in another respect. I've written this book, I might as well mention it, On Power. It's going to be out in about 4 weeks. It's a very, very important book. It addresses
And
this and
I
1,000
have
other
a
things.
mustache,
This is
you know.
about power. So what are we looking at here? These courts that went the way
I have a
they went.
mustache.
This school district that's going the way it went. This school district defying
You can
parents.
see
We're
it.
going to get into this. who insisted that they will teach their kids in elementary school about LGBTQ plus, whether the parents know it or not,
Nice
like
to
it or
meet
not,
you
and the kids can't get out of the
too.
class.
Oh, Pilun.
So in my new book, I call this authoritarian democracy. You see, we go through the motions of a democracy or a republic,
Don't
if you
talk
will.
nonsense,
But really what
don't.
we have here is authoritarianism, and it's getting worse.
It's not
Whether it's these lower
allowed.
courts, these federal courts, or whether it's a school district.
I have a
You elect
mustache.
those school board members, right? So we go through the motions of a democracy. These justices,
Did you eat your breakfast, Dawn? Are you
judges, and
okay?
these three justices, they're supposed to be the epitome of what the Constitution's about, and it is who we are trying to control. Authoritarian democracy. Let's take a look at this. First, we take this case involving universal injunction.
You're crazy. Now just I know you're crazy,
The
Dawn.
courts were operating as they're supposed to.
You need
Justice
medicine.
Barrett. We give her credit where credit's due, surprisingly so, but she
Medicine.
was
I
good, and not
cannot
only that,
deliver
she
the
dukes it
medicine.
out with Jackson. And really, it's a knockout. The United States has filed 3 emergency applications
Oh my
challenging the scope of a federal
God.
court's authority to enjoin government officials from enforcing an executive order. Traditionally, courts issued injunctions prohibiting executive officials from enforcing a challenged law or policy only against the plaintiffs in the lawsuit. The facts
Is
of
it
the
hot
case,
there in your
all the
place?
case, it's the case
Because
in the court.
here it's
The
really
injunctions
cool.
before us today reflect a more recent development. District courts asserting the power to prohibit
Pilun.
enforcement of a law or policy against anyone in the whole country.
How
These
crazy.
injunctions, known as universal injunctions, likely exceed the equitable authority that Congress has granted to the federal courts. Congress grants these powers to the courts. These courts are not in the Constitution. Congress creates them, empowers them,
I want to go
determines
to
their
Ireland.
limitations. We therefore grant the government's applications
Take me
to
there,
partially
Dawn.
stay the injunctions entered below. The question whether Congress has granted federal courts the authority to universally enjoin the enforcement of an executive or legislative policy plainly warrants our
Ireland.
review.
I'm
It's easy to
watching
see
the
why, by the end of the
pageant
Biden
there.
administration, we had reached a state of affairs where almost every
Yeah,
major
I know you're
presidential act was
crazy.
immediately frozen by a federal district court. And during the first 100 days of the second Trump administration, district courts issued approximately 25 universal injunctions. Now, we lived this together as they were
Thank
going
you,
on. I was pounding my
Pilun.
fist that this is unconstitutional. This is a rogue judiciary. They're destroying separation of powers. I went through the history. I went through your Constitution. I went through the history of Madison's notes. I went through the history of Marbury versus Madison, which was bad enough, and we went through all this stuff. It's not even a close call. You had 3 of these justices, the 3 radicals. They supported it.
A Pilun.
Get into
A
that.
Pilun.
Some say that
A
universal
Pilun? What are you
injunctions give
watching
the
right
judiciary a
now?
powerful tool to check the executive branch. Wow. She points out that federal courts do not exercise general oversight of the executive branch. They resolve cases and controversies consistent with the authority Congress has given them.
I
When a
don't
court
know.
concludes that the executive branch has acted unlawfully,
Yeah,
the answer
I'm
is not for the
Philippine.
court
I'm
to
from
exceed
Philippines.
its power too.
A
Justice
Pilun.
Barrett, you know I
How
haven't been a
about
fan
you?
of the great decision. That's what you wrote here. Justice Alito, he says, okay, but we have a little problem. These judges are still there. They're still radical leftists, my words, not his. They're still Democrats in robes. They were put there, as Schumer said, to thwart Trump. They're ideologues. They should be nowhere near a courtroom, let alone as judges. He says, so I see 2 weaknesses in this. Third-party standing. They're granting third-party standing. So this is a way that these judges can, rather than
It's
adhere
low
to what's really
already.
required to have standing, especially for a third party, loosen it up, liberalize it. So they open their doors to all
It's
kinds of
low.
So he warns
It's
about that.
low
He says we should have
volume.
dealt with that. Then this issue of class
No.
action suits that you've heard about. Class
It's
action
not
suits.
too
There's a rule,
loud.
Rule 23, that has very particular details about what you can do. to have a
Because
class
I'm
action. He
alone,
says
I
these same
love
judges,
to watch. Then I feel
either third
I
party
have a
standing
lot of
and they loosen it up.
companions
And same with these class action requirements.
here
He
when
signed on to the
I
majority, of course. He's just
watch
warning.
the news.
He's warning. We may be back here
I
because
make
these
it
people
loud, but
may
not
try and
as
circumvent
loud.
it again. Which tells you what? Which tells you about the lack of integrity and the lack of willingness to comply with the Constitution. And even this Supreme Court case that Alito foresees, and you know what? Alito is right.
Borneo.
And here we have Justice Jackson.
Hello,
Her
Malaysia.
dissent is
Hello,
longer than the case's
Borneo.
opinion, or it's pretty close.
I love that
If you're going to
country.
read anything,
all
you
the-
should read this. Because this is a perfect opinion. on what a radical,
It's not too loud,
out-of-control
Don.
justice
What's your
of the Supreme Court
problem?
wants to happen.
If you're a man, then you've probably heard multiple versions of the following sayings throughout your entire life.
Just...
Man up, don't cry.
It's
Out
not
of control,
loud. Do you
justice of the
understand?
Supreme Court wants to happen. This is it. This is crazy stuff. And so, if you want to see where the left is on this, read it. Now, why is this so important to Jackson, who is radical? Kagan, who proves herself to be a hypocrite.
Okay.
And Sotomayor, who's the leader of the team. Because Woodrow Wilson told us that the power of progressivism, aka American Marxism, is in the unelected judiciary. Those
Okay.
lower courts were doing exactly what the Democrat Party wanted them to do.
Apayalun.
They were doing exactly what Sotomayor and Kagan and Jackson want them to do. And if they get 2 more justices on the Supreme Court, they will rip up this decision and they will do exactly what I said. They rely on the unelected judges. They rely on the unelected bureaucrats. They built this massive bureaucracy with the help of Republicans. But it was their idea. It was their idea. It was Wilson's idea. And
No.
others, you're going to learn all about this in this book
Apayalun,
on
no.
power. So when they have this massive bureaucracy and Trump's taking
Why?
it on and Elon Musk is taking it on, you got to firebomb the dealership, you got to
Okay.
attack the vehicles, you got to destroy the
problem.
men, you got to investigate them, you got to deport them. You see what I mean? And that was just the attacks on Elon Musk. And so these courts come in and say, leave this edifice alone, this 4th branch of government that's not in the Constitution, that we progressives, radical American
I know,
Marxists
I know.
have created,
It's okay. I'm fine.
since the 1920s.
I know, Don. Okay.
That's our baby. That's
Thank
how we
you,
rule.
thank you.
The bureaucracy, the courts. That's why Jackson
And I don't have
wrote what she
plan,
wrote.
Don.
That's why Kagan doesn't mind being viewed as a complete hypocrite. That's why Sotomayor leads the 3. That's why Alito's warning these other federal judges at the bottom level here that we just tried to curtail their activity. They're going to find other ways to try and do what they do. Authoritarian democracy. Authoritarian democracy. So this is the big picture. Some of my friends are saying, well, it's basically a procedural thing. It's not a procedural thing. This is a battle royale. And President Trump has taken them on, and he defeated them. Pam Bondi took them on. She defeated them. Their lawyers defeated them. But we're not done. I guarantee you. It could be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. They want to rule through the courts. They want to rule
You're
the
short.
bureaucracy. Those judges
I'm
are
short
ruling
too.
against Trump left and right, whether it's immigration, whether it's a reduction in force, whether it's access to data, whether it's what's on their computers, whether it's whatever it is. No, 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 no.
Me
We want
too.
to diminish the power of the presidency only when a Republican has it. They want to expand it when a Democrat's in there. But we need to handicap this guy, Trump. He's a
Don,
danger to
I'm
society.
5 flat.
He's a danger to them
We're not much.
as he tries to institute the promises he made in a landslide election. He is a danger to them. And what the Supreme Court justices did is said, you guys in the lower courts,
We have
you
12
can't keep
minutes to
doing
end
this
the live.
universal
It's
stuff.
good, nice and warm.
This was not controversial before. It started to pick up in the 60s a little more, but under Trump, it's like
Ah,
a
my
reign of hell.
clothes, sing
A
my
reign of hell.
nail polish.
Now, I want you to look at it this way. If we didn't have these 6 justices rule as they did, what would we have here? They would have had to explain something, some
5'8".
standard that these lower court
that's-
judges would have. I've been
That's
thinking
all.
about
You
what
told
would
me
that standard be?
5'11". Why you told me now
Not a very good one.
5'8"?
The doors would be
Are
thrown
you
wide
okay,
open
Don?
to the
You're
Wilsonian
too much
American
tall.
Marxist ideology.
You're tall.
We're not only what they're
You're really
doing being
tall.
upheld, they'd be encouraged to do more of it.
You can find saying your
Deconstruction
height
of the Constitution.
because it's not
A
good.
complete deconstruction. Where a conservative or Republican president would be constantly looking over their shoulder and answering to 700 federal district judges. Mostly the activists, because the conservatives, the constitutional would say, that's not really what I'm supposed to do. So the activist judges, the Democrat judges that Schumer said they put on there to thwart Donald Trump, which
No.
is thwart the electorate,
Not all.
undermine the election, an insurrection, if you will, they would not only have full reign in what they're doing, it would expand even more.
Not all.
Separation of powers would
Opa.
be completely destroyed.
Pylon.
That's
Not
how important
all.
this case was. But those judges are still there. They're going to be ruling on a zillion different cases that still affect our
When?
lives. Whether it's
When, Don?
immigration or
And
1,000 other things.
Don,
Then we have this case
you have
involving
just told
school
me your
district.
age. I'm
A school
old now.
district. Can you imagine a
You
school
can
district in this
find
Montgomery County, Maryland? It's nuts. It's sort of Moscow in Maryland.
younger
Although it's worse than Moscow.
girls, not me.
You go through these motions, you actually elected a school board and your parents. But you have no say.
Yeah,
Authoritarian
you're younger.
democracy.
That's the
I'm going to
problem.
make that term famous again, and I'm going to make this
And I'm
book on
38
power.
now.
Must reading. Must reading. Authoritarian democracy. What is that?
No,
We have a school board.
I don't think so.
And so they set up these courses, and they have books and
I don't think
coursework
so.
and so forth. LGBTQ plus, all kinds of sexuality for high school, no, middle school, no, elementary school students. And you got kids going there. You got Orthodox Jews. You've got
How
Muslims.
about
You got
you,
practicing Catholics or
Opalu?
whomever else. Just somebody said, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Oh,
My kid's 7 years old. What kind of crap are you putting in their face? You know what?
hi
I want to
nako.
see it. I want to consent to it before I allow my kid to go in there.
Don,
So many parents
are you
opted out
okay?
that these courses went away. And the school district say, no, we as
Make
school
me
district, we
crazy.
exist for the teachers'
You
unions.
really make me
We have a
crazy.
couple of teachers that teach these courses. You're going to do what we say. We're going to have these classes, and you're going to send your kid. It's now mandatory. And we don't have to tell you a damn thing. Now, let me ask you something. 25 years ago, would that
Are
fly?
you okay?
No. Would it even enter anybody's mind? No.
Oh my
These
gosh.
cases are
I have 8
push
minutes,
against
guys,
the
to end the
Democrat
live
Party,
because
the
I'm
radical,
going to the
radical
city right
agenda that
now.
they are pushing.
I know.
More and more of these cases.
When my friend
Are we
came.
the people against them? You used to have legitimate disputes, contract cases, or this state versus this state, who has power when you have a conflict of laws, things like no. You're not defending parental rights.
Oh, yeah.
You're defending the free exercise of religion under the First
You're
Amendment in a
gonna
school
leave
district.
me.
And everybody's fighting their nails. How will it turn out? You know how that vote went? 6-3.
You're
The
gonna
same
love
three justices.
me. Mistake yata yun.
Why? It's part of the Democrat Party, American Marxist agenda. That's why. It's authoritarian democracy. And the courts are going to back the Montgomery County School District. The Supreme Court, their justices,
You're
they're going to back
gonna love
the road
me.
judges. They're going to back this massive federal bureaucracy. Doesn't matter if there's bloat and fraud and it doesn't matter. We need that fourth branch. That's how we rule. We need unelected judges. That's how we rule. Now, when they win elections, they say they have a mandate. When they lose elections, what do? They go
Thank
to the
you,
unelected branches
Opa.
to try and cripple Donald Trump. Donald
Yeah,
Trump
I
is the
have
greatest threat
done.
we've ever faced. Ever. He's dealing with the bureaucracy.
I have.
Dealing with the bureaucracy. He wants to appoint more actual constitutionalists to the court. And what is a constitutionalist judge? Takes a look at the law, the facts, in his or her courtroom,
Wow.
and rules right there. They're not
What's
looking to make law
so-
nationwide or stop things nationwide or undermine a president. What is
Don
a
my
constitutionalist
Snapchat.
Supreme Court justice? You just saw them.
I
They look at the
forgot.
Constitution, the statute, the facts, and they stay in their lane.
I forgot
What about the
it.
other guys? There is no lane.
Wait,
There's
I'll
no
check.
lane.
I will check in
And
six
so we
6
are
minutes.
actually
Message me,
fighting
Dawn, after
An
my live.
ideology that comes out of Marxism,
Then I will
they call it
share.
progressivism. I've
Message me
explained this
after
for
my
many
live
years
because
now.
I cannot
That does not
see your
adhere-
message when I
does not
end my
adhere to the
live. Okay, in
constitutional
6
construct while it
minutes.
waves it around. It is incompatible with
I don't
constitutional
have a
government.
good voice.
Their ideology
Appa.
is incompatible with constitutional government. So we have these two crucially important cases that should never had to have been brought to the Supreme Court or any court, where we have a school district that is denying parents the free exercise of religion under the First Amendment and destroying parental rights over how you raise your children. That should not even be
Yeah,
a
because
matter of cultural
no,
activity.
because I cannot
But it
read your
is.
message if I
And we have
end my
federal
live.
district judges who are
You know?
destroying separation of powers, destroying the role of an elected president who won in a landslide and has to go all the way to the Supreme Court. These are two cases which in a healthy republic wouldn't even exist. That is what we're up against.
I must
Thank
be
God they ruled as
crazy
they did.
now.
You know what they ruled for? The status quo.
No problemo, sabi
Federal
niya.
judges, you have a lane. Stay in your lane. School districts, you don't have the power to indoctrinate the children of parents who don't agree with your radical left sexualized, perverted agenda. These cases would never have been even thought of 25 years ago. And here we are. I want to thank the 6 justices who stood together. It's not a conservative court. It is a constitutional
Why are you going
majority.
now,
I don't always
Opa?
agree with a couple of them, and I'll continue to challenge them when I don't. Criticize justices or not. They got it exactly right here. But I want you to understand the bigger context of what's taking
Opa,
place.
are you
There's gonna
going
be more
now?
cases. There's going to be more battles. This
Tell
is
me.
just the beginning. And we want 2 damn big ones.
Yeah, I
Congratulations to
hope.
the United States Supreme
Because
Court.
it's really cold
With
here.
the 6
Don.
constitutionalists on the court, our president, who is relentless in taking these people on. And by the way, notice he follows the rule of law. Now let's see if these lower federal judges follow the order of the Supreme Court, huh? And let's see. We'll be right back. America, we have
I'm here in
my
the
friend Ted
UAE,
Cruz,
Don.
Mr. Conservative.
I'm working here in the UAE, but I am
He
from
is
the
he's a lawyer
Philippines.
extraordinaire. He's litigated in front of the Supreme Court. He's clerk. And
I
of course,
told you
Alan Dershowitz
before.
said he's the smartest student he ever
I
had.
have
Ted Cruz, Supreme Court
3
rulings,
minutes.
one in which it's
Yeah, I'm here in the UAE
certainly
right
limited
now.
The rogue
And
district
today's
courts
my
in
off
terms
day.
of these universal injunctions, and also a monumental decision on parental rights
Yes, Don, you're right.
and freedom of religion. Your thoughts?
Well, both of these decisions are a big deal. The first one, Trump. Well, both of these decisions are a big deal. The first one, Trump versus Casa,
How?
dealt with President Trump's
I didn't know
birthright
how.
citizenship
Can
executive
you
order, and
arrange
the
for
court
me?
did not decide the merits of that particular question. But
Can you
instead, the
arrange
court
for
did
me?
something that I think is incredibly important, which is the court said
That's the
that
question.
one single
Can you
district judge
arrange
does
for
not have the
me
power to issue
like
a
that?
nationwide injunction, a
How
so-called
possible?
universal injunction. This
Oh
has been
yeah,
the
how
preferred
come?
tool of the left to wage lawfare against President Trump.
Okay.
We've seen in the first 5 months
send
of
me working
Trump's
visa.
second term, more nationwide injunctions entered against the president by single district judges than we saw in the entire 20th century. We've seen more in the last 5 months than the entirety of
two-way
President Bush's
ticket.
term, President Obama's
Okay,
term,
two-way
and President
ticket.
Biden's term. And this
It's
is
nice
how
if
the
two-way
left was
ticket.
attacking and trying to frustrate the mandate the president has from the voters. And the Supreme Court in a 6-3 decision said an individual judge does not have the authority to issue a universal injunction that binds every person in the country. Instead, a judge's role is more limited.
I have
Under the
2 minutes,
Constitution,
Don.
under Article 3 of the Constitution, a judge is supposed to decide
Okay,
a
well,
case or controversy.
July
a matter
10 is my
between the parties.
vacation. I have
And
a
the
1 month
Supreme Court
vacation,
reined
Don.
in not
Starting
just this district
July
judge,
10
but the
until
rogue
August
left-wing
3.
judges who had been issuing
Okay.
injunction after injunction after injunction, trying to stop President Trump from carrying out the mandate of the voters.
And
I
we still
have
the
1
three
minute,
radicals on the
Don,
court. One
before
about
I
that,
end
Greg
my
Jackson, the
live.
worst among them. She wrote an opinion that is absolutely
Okay,
unhinged.
two-way ticket,
And so my
Don.
question to you is this.
And you told
She
me
really
there
reflects these rogue judges. Yeah.
in 2
Many of
weeks.
them are newly appointed. Many of them are
After I
Biden.
come
So they're
back
still
here.
going to be there. So I just want the American
What?
people to understand. Well, let me ask it
What?
this way.
Why? Oh
They're
no.
still going to rule like radical left-wing
I'm gonna end my
Democrat
life
operatives, aren't
now.
they?
I'm going to
It's
the
just that
city
now
to
they
buy
can't impose
my
their will on the nation
daily
where they
needs.
sit in their little courtroom in their little district, correct?
How?
Well,
How?
unfortunately, that's exactly
How,
what
Don?
Biden looked for and
Send me-
found
send
put on
me
the
the
court.
two-way
He was not
ticket.
looking for judges who follow the law. He was looking for partisan radicals. And the pattern of
Okay.
lawfare we've
I have
seen,
20 seconds.
every day President Trump and the administration is sued by Democrat blue state attorneys general, by left-wing
Thank you so
activist
much,
groups.
guys.
And the majority of these nationwide injunctions, 85% of them came from 5 jurisdictions.
Okay, bye
jurisdictions
everyone.
where
Thank
they
you for
knew
coming and
they have
joining.
left-wing radicals
Hello,
who agree with their
Armstrong.
policy.
James, I'm
And so they're
going
bringing cases,
now.
but what this ruling means is that you can only
Hello,
get an
Injit.
injunction that
Oh,
binds
really?
the
You're
parties to the case
serious
and not
or
330 million people across
joking?
the country.
Are you joking,
And you know,
Dawn?
you and I had talked about this before. I've talked about this
Because
a lot
I'm
on my
serious
podcast,
here.
Verdict with Ted Cruz. There were 3 avenues to rein in these
Armstrong,
nationwide
thank you for
injunctions. One would
coming.
be for Congress to act and pass legislation limiting the ability to do that. The problem is the Democrats would filibuster it because every Democrat
Hey,
senator supports these
Armstrong,
lawless
thank
judges,
you.
setting aside the
I need
president's
to end
agenda
my
and
live
putting their own
now.
policy agenda ahead
Bye
of the voters.
bye.
The second is
Heart,
impeachment, and
everyone.
these radical judges, I think, should be impeached. But again, in
Yeah.
the Senate, it takes 2/3 to convict, and every
Thanks.
Democrat in the Senate
Oh, it's the
supports
last.
these judges disregarding the law and trying to stop the president from fulfilling his mandate. That meant the third and the only reasonable option is what happened on Friday, which is appellate review,
Okay,
the Supreme
let's
Court
continue the
stepping up and
news
saying
later
we are
when I
going to
come back.
guard the rule of law, and it's a strong opinion, and it's 6-3.
I just finished my
and
data,
you're right,
guys.
Justice
Okay,
Jackson
bye.
wrote an unhinged dissent, which in
Bye,
some ways is good because it
guys.
makes clear exactly where she's coming from. And I think it drove
Oh,
the 6
yeah,
together
please,
and
my
cemented them. I
data.
think that's a good thing for the rule of law.
Ted Cruz, when we come back, let's take a
My
look
data,
at Iran.
my data. What
Now
am I
that Israel
doing?
has defeated their army, we've taken out their nuclear sites. What should